Hello friends, for today's video I wanted to go through my top new fantasy releases that I picked up within quarter 4. Typically I like to highlight my top 3, but this particular quarter there were 4 that I felt were standouts of the new fantasy books that I picked up, and I just really couldn't bump one off because every time I assessed them I found there were different things about these different books that I really liked. So we are going to go through 4 today rather than 3, but even saying that, I wouldn't necessarily say that any of these are all-time new favorites. I thought a lot of them were very good. For the ones that are within series, I thought they either expanded on the series well or were good first installments. But I wouldn't say these are, oh my gosh, I'm never going to shut up about these kind of books. But regardless, I did think they were very good. I did enjoy them. And if you are interested in checking any of them out, I'll have them linked in the description bar. And if I have any more in-depth reviews for these, I'll have those in the description bar as well. But anyway, jumping into it, this first one is the most out of left field, I will say. The other ones I think make a little bit more sense to what I typically enjoy. And I'll admit, this one really surprised me, but I was so thoroughly entertained. I actually laughed out loud a number of times while reading this. It's a sequel. I enjoyed the first one well enough, but this one just, I don't know, it really got me, and I was like, I actually think I gotta give it to this one. I think it was one of the books I enjoyed the most of the new fantasy I picked up in quarter 4, and finally revealing what that book was. It was The God and the Gwisin. So this is the sequel to The God and the Gumiho, and in the first book, you follow a trickster nine-tailed fox, hence it being called The God and the Gumiho, who ends up pairing up with this fallen god detective because she knows that he is on her case. She's an infamous Gumiho, and she figures to get him off of her tails, pun intended, that she will become his assistant and then she'll kind of thwart his investigation anywhere she can. And over the course of the story, shenanigans ensue. And I've described it before as feeling very much like an anime in book form. It's really over the top and it's really dramatic, and it was fun. And so when I picked up The God and the Gwisin, I was kind of like, okay, so we're expanding on things from the first one. I know that it's gonna be sillier, because I think that was something, when I picked up the first one, it almost took a moment to settle into the tone, because the tone is very over the top and it is kind of ridiculous. So going into the second one, I knew that was going to be the case. And this is going to be an odd comparison, but I know some of you will know what I'm talking about. So I have to establish what the setting is for the second one, though. They end up going on what is basically this giant cruise ship for souls that are waiting to be almost like reincarnated. And as an example of the humor, it's called like the Flatliner or something like that, which is already pretty amusing. But regardless, the setting is this giant cruise ship, basically. And it reminded me of, for those of you that have watched Spy Family, when Lloyd comes out with that ridiculous outfit because he's trying to be really good at being a spy and getting into his role as cool, relaxed dad on vacation, and he has that absolutely absurd outfit on, and Anya's like, so uncool. That part, that's what this book felt like. So much of it was just absolutely ridiculous and so dumb, and it was very self-aware of how stupid it was. And I did enjoy it. I had a lot of fun with this one. And when I say it came out of left field, it's because of the fact that I liked the first book. I thought the first book was fun. I don't know if I was expecting the second one to just be like, all right, gloves are coming off. So I think that's kind of what I'm trying to convey when I say it came out of left field. And also, it's just so different from everything else that's on this list and a lot of the other new fantasy releases that I've picked up this year and really liked. So if you're looking for just a fun, ridiculous time, then these 2 books so far in this series, I think will supply that. After that, completely switching gears, we have A Drop of Corruption. Now, for those of us that pick up a lot of new fantasy releases, sometimes they're debuts, or sometimes they're books by established authors. Sometimes they're trying to do something entirely different within the genre. Sometimes they're tapping into things that feel familiar. But when you pick up a lot of, especially if it's all within fantasy, which is primarily what I stick to, every now and then you get a book where you're like, oh, it's just like a breath of fresh air when it comes to the writing or the way that the story unfolds and the pacing and the creativity. And I definitely think A Drop of Corruption has all of that. The reason that I would say overall this trilogy probably, I believe it's going to be a trilogy. I think there's just one more book. This trilogy will probably never enter my all-time favorites list solely because the plot and the pacing is exceptional, but sometimes I want a little bit of time to maybe be with the characters a little bit more. And I like the way that the characterization is done. I like how certain things are revealed to you and how you get it through a lot of subtlety. I actually do really, really like that. But I do think that it is a little bit more plot focused at times, and I do prefer things that are more character focused, but that is not a fault of this story. This is more of a it's not you, it's me situation. But I still really like it. I feel like it's hard to articulate well that I really like this, but here are the reasons why it's never going to be a favorite, while still making clear that I think it's great. So it's kind of a weird combination of things, but I genuinely think that a lot of the hype that this series is getting is well deserved. I really liked the sequel. I think I was more invested in this second one than I was in the first, and that's probably because you're starting to get little snippets, I would say, especially of one of the two main characters. You're starting to get a little bit more of them within this. And also, it was just really cool to see the expansion of the world. Also, it seems like a series that I will like maybe even more upon reread because of the fact that there are mysterious components to the world building. And I think once we have those pieces, it will create for great rereadability. So I'm really excited for that, but that's obviously not going to come for a few years at this point. But regardless, if you don't know anything about this series, the first book kicks off with a man who is helping with an investigation. It's a murder mystery setup, and he has certain aspects to himself that have been augmented, which allows for him to have perfect recall. And this is obviously going to be beneficial within an investigation, but he relays everything that he observes and all the things that he finds to this woman that he works with, who is, if you've heard the comparison that this is like Sherlock Holmes in a fantasy world, she is essentially the Sherlock character, where she's eccentric and strange, but exceptionally intelligent, and she's always able to take everything that he's delivered to her and try to piece it together. Within the second one, I think what was really fun is she'd almost met her match in a way, but you don't even know who that match is. She just knows that this person is always one step ahead, and she'll figure things out faster than anyone else, but it's still not necessarily fast enough because whatever the person is up to, they're always onto the sixth step and they've only figured out the second. It's that kind of feel. So they're always way behind them, even when you have what is basically the most intelligent person on your side and on your team. So I did really enjoy that aspect of things. And I'm just excited to learn more about the world, especially given the name of the series. I just feel like I'm waiting to have a little bit more information. Also, as far as the augments that have been done to our main character, Din, it's through these plants that have the ability to grant people certain, basically, powers. So there are other individuals that have powers as well that are different from his. And I really think that the world itself is awesome. So I had a lot of fun with this sequel. The last two I'll mention are not sequels. One is a standalone, and the other one is the first in a series. The one that's the first in a series is The Birth of a Dynasty. I've talked about this one a few different times recently because I read it not too long ago, and I thought it was a standout, so I did a dedicated review for it. I'll have that linked. Additionally, I would have really liked seeing this one on the Goodreads nominees, so I did mention it in a video that I just did about some Goodreads snubs, even though I was under no impression that this would show up because it doesn't have the marketing and the hype behind it, but I still thought it was fantastic and deserves a little bit more recognition. It's very cutthroat. Because I've talked about it a number of times recently, I'll try to keep my what it's about brief here, but you follow these two members of these powerful families, and those in power are trying to basically contain one of the families by having their daughter under their watch constantly. And so there's a lot of politicking and intrigue with her perspective. The other one, his family has been wiped out by those in power. He's the last remaining member now, and he's just kind of lying in wait until his opportunity arises to strike back. And even though these are your two main perspectives, you do get a variety of other perspectives over the course of the story that illuminate a little bit more of the lore. It provides more context to why, this person hates this person. And even though you're rooting for this character because they're very young and they're innocent and they shouldn't be held responsible necessarily for whatever weird prophecy exists and things like that, it doesn't change the fact that maybe their family also participated in some things that weren't okay. And maybe there were villainous people in their family too. So there's a lot of gray morality. It's very high stakes. If you like intrigue, if you like kind of just slower building of your stories and the crafting of the pieces means that in the long run, you're going to really care about what happens. You like high stakes. I really think that Birth of a Dynasty is a really good first installment into a series. I'm excited to see where it goes from here, because the way it ends, I'm like, oh, there's just so much potential for the series. I'm really excited. And then last for today, we have The Summer War by Naomi Novik. This has that quintessential fairy tale feeling to it, and I think Naomi Novik is very good at writing in this style. It does mean that the literal writing itself is going to feel different than a lot of the other new releases that we have picked up over the course of this year or just over the last few years, because there is more of this whimsical, I'm telling you this tale. The sentences themselves kind of almost border on being run-on sentences at times, but it just kind of have that feeling of somebody's talking in a sense. I wouldn't say by any means it's casual, but it does have this, a master of storytelling is relaying this all to you. And it's very, very short, but it really packed a punch. The setup for the story is that you follow this young girl who accidentally cursed her older brother when she discovered that he was going to leave them. And the reason for leaving them you find out when you're picking up the story, but she feels very betrayed and hurt by his decision, even though you, as an adult, can understand why he's doing what he's doing, but she doesn't understand. She's very young. She takes it as, you're leaving me, you don't love me, you don't care about me, and she feels very betrayed by this, and so she tells him she hopes that nobody will ever love him, and this curses him, and in her efforts to try and reverse the curse, she ends up bonding with her half-brother. They get to know each other a lot better, and they agree to not only care about each other, but they're now going to do what they can to help their older brother. And it just has such a great fairy tale feel to it. As noted, it is exceptionally short. So if you are looking for something that's perfect, honestly, for kind of the fall winter season, and it's just a fairy tale and you can get lost in it, I really enjoyed this one. And weirdly, I feel like typically it's a compliment to say, oh, I flew through something. But I actually found that it was sort of the opposite with this one. Even though it was exceptionally short, I just kind of wanted to read a little bit before bed, or a little bit if I was in between doing other things. I just kind of wanted to settle into something. It just had that, I don't want to go through this quickly. I just want to take little bits and pieces of the story at a time, because it was just so lovely to get kind of lost in it. So if that sounds appealing to you, I think that The Summer War will probably work out quite well. But I do want to note again, the writing style is going to be a little bit different probably than what a lot of the rest of New Fantasy has to offer. So it might take some getting used to. But regardless, those were my standouts from the fourth quarter of the year. Of course, because of the fact that we're coming up now on the end of the year, and I'm filming this before the very end of the year, there might be a few more things that I pick up before officially 2025 is over. And if I do, and if they're standouts, you will hear about them, I'm sure, in January. But regardless, these were the standouts of the ones I have had the chance to pick up so far within quarter four. Let me know what your standouts for New Fantasy have been this quarter. If you're interested in any of these, I'll have them linked. Thanks so much for watching though. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you later. Bye.